Hey guys, welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. Today we are here to begin our off-season content, and it's our first podcast that we have had without a recap of a Survivor episode. So the fact that we are waiting a few months for Survivor 46, almost here, even at like end of February, so we're about 2 months away. Um, we're getting ready and excited for that. But right now we wanted to do a season rankings. So today we're going to rank. We're going to do it in tens, and then the last episode we'll do just a mega 15 ranking of the top 15 seasons. And that will just be a mega episode. But this episode will be ranking the 45 best season to the 36th best season. Just because all Survivor's good Survivor. Just kidding. There's some pretty bad ones in here that we're talking about. So bear with us as we talk about the bottom of the barrel, but I hope that you enjoy our commentary and we'll get right into it. This will probably be a pretty long one, so bear with us. And if you're a big Survivor fan, you want to hear our opinion about where we have our seasons, we'll do it. So we have the way we're going to do this is the worst, like 15 worst seasons. They're averaged between the two of us where we play stars. And then we will also talk about where we had them ourselves. So, Joel, you want to introduce yourself and
Yep, I'm Joel. I'm super excited to do this. We have like pretty similar opinions, but honestly, off the rip, we have one that's pretty like divisive. I think everyone should agree with these top 15s. I'm just the weirdo who likes one of these seasons a lot. I like two of them actually a lot. But yeah, I say we get into it.
all right, let's go. So starting out at season 45, the worst season of all time, we both have it in the same spot at the bottom of the barrel, Survivor Thailand, which
Coggy for this game.
Survivor Cagayan. Just kidding. Thailand is the worst season for us. Um, Basically, as much as I said, like, it's not worth watching for any reason except to watch them all. And so, if you are a Survivor fan and you're trying to figure out what seasons to watch, please
Don't do them.
don't
There's no
play
need.
this.
Yeah, there's no need on it. I just think everyone agrees that it's kind of like a terrible season all around. The cast is terrible. There's a lot of ickiness all around. There's like glimmers of like good moments, but like, I mean, they're very far and in between. Not very good characters at all. Even the winner is like a terrible person. So, I mean, there's not real much satisfaction at all in it.
I totally agree. Um, yeah, as far as where I had it in my watch, I just kind of jumped around a bit. So like, it was actually not the last season I watched. Like I just was like, yeah, we'll try it out. And I was like, well, I have to do it. I already started it, didn't know it was bad. Like Joel was saying, there are some good moments. Um, I guess we're doing the spoiler free, I guess. I don't know. Unless you want to just talk about spoilers.
I mean, if you're gonna look at my season rankings, I'm gonna spoil a little, but
Yeah, let's just spoil if just so y'all are aware, we're gonna spoil each of the seasons that we talk.
spoiler alert, here
Spoiler
it
alert.
is.
And so the winner, Brian, he's just kind of a jerk to everyone. And then there's the whole Ted and
Yeah.
Gabrielle situation, which really cast a damper on the season, which is also similar to another season we'll talk about on this one that everyone knows
Mm.
about because it's a lot more recent. But just the way the producers handled it wasn't really good, and the way that the cast is just horrible to each other from the entire season. I will say we're going to also talk about our favorite moment and favorite player from each of the seasons. And so I've got to go for my favorite moment of Survivor Thailand is the attack zone challenge. I know it's super
Yeah.
cliche, but it's just hilarious just watching Jeff just yell at everyone in the cast like, Rob, don't choke Clay, stuff like
Just
that. Good moments. And then my favorite player is probably Sheehan. Like she's the only
mm.
interest. I like her better than All Stars, but I think you get to see a little the start of her short Survivor tenure. And so I just think she's an interesting character, and um she's really good at talking to the camera and kind of narrating. And so I enjoyed her on the season.
Yeah. I I definitely have like a different point of view of Thailand. I try to like think about what you were gonna do, and I try to always try to pick it different from what you're gonna do. So my actual favorite moment of the entire season is something I actually go back to. Is the final immunity challenge, like itself, is super cool. Like, it's in a cave. They are like in this like ritual pose with like gold between their fingers, and it looks sick. I mean, obviously Brian was gonna win it because it's against two people very much older than him. But I think like on any other season, like it's probably the most like neatly designed challenge like Survivor has ever done. And I wish they did more stuff like that, where it was like legitimately like a torture device, which I think is fitting for Brian, who I think when I look at the season, I think Sheehan's probably my favorite, but I'm gonna go through Brian as a winner because I mean we've had 45 winners. It is so interesting to me that we had a literal psychopath on the show and they won. And I mean, first dominant winner, the one who came up with the goat strategy. And I think like obviously like terrible person, like not good. But I think it's interesting to watch Brian like recognize that he's a terrible person. Like he calls himself Mr. Freeze. He like flips off the camera. Like I don't know. I don't like necessarily like it, but it is like an interesting person to watch play Survivor, especially at that time.
Absolutely. And he's still regarded as one of the best winners that we've ever
Mhm.
had. And that was season 5, and it's been 40 seasons later. And the fact that he's still regarded probably top 15, top 10 winners, just of how dominant he was. I think that shows how impressive his game was. Although this season that really dampers the season just because of how dominant winners can really just affect seasons negatively, even though it's good
Yeah.
on for winning. We'll talk about 2 other seasons in this 15 that were just super dominant winners that made the season pretty boring. And so I think that despite the fact that people are rude to each other, there's some icky moments. You don't have really anyone to root for. It's a dominant winner. It's boring. Like it just everything about the season kind of brings it down. Like although there are a couple funny moments here and there, just like uh Pastor John at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. Uh, yeah, is that his name's John, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I
something like
don't
that.
really remember most of them.
First boot.
You,
Is
you,
he's a pretty funny first boot just because how he went out. He played so bad. But like other than that, there's a couple glimmers, and we can move on from Thailand. I'm not really
yeah.
have anything else to talk about with that season.
Yeah, nothing else really. All right. Let's move on to the next one, which is actually not my second to last, but I think we both pretty agree that it's All Stars,
Yes.
which is like pretty funny looking back on it because like it actually has a crazy cool cast. Like they got back everyone they wanted for
Hmm.
this cast, but it did not play out very well.
No, like it was kind of I want to say like a winners at war kind of situation where all the good people get voted out first, like the people that you're like so excited that they're back, they all get voted out first. The boot order is just
Yeah,
uh
terrible.
terrible. And then there's also more icky moments on the show. Um
Yeah,
so Joel had this at 38 and I had it at 44. So I had it pretty low. Um but I just the reason I don't like this season is that it's just like such a negative atmosphere like the whole time you're watching. Like there's not a lot of like positive moments. Like although like the Rob and Amber love story is just really cool to watch. Like it's crazy that it's on Survivor and that we get to like go back and like see them fall in love and then literally get married. And they aired that marriage like aired their wedding live because of how popular the show was. I think that's
hmm
really crazy and that's just a huge like reality TV moment as a whole. But Final Tribal, obviously iconic with like everyone just kind of going into him, like going into Rob and Ember eventually winning. Like it kind of to me, just the whole season was really negative. There's several funny moments though, like with Rupert building the fort that's gonna win the whole challenge. He's like hyping himself up the whole time and then it floods and they can't use it. Like that's a great moment. I got bamboozled. That's also a great moment with Richard Hatch getting voted out. And then I think what's really impressive pre-merge player on this season was Ethan making it the farthest out of all the winners, even though
he
like
played.
he's one of the most dangerous ones out there. Like comparatively
Mhm.
to the other winners. So I feel like that was pretty impressive on his part as well. So although like the betrayal is there, like there's I got bored. I had to stop watching it a couple times in the middle of my watch through when I watched it the first time, and so that kind of doesn't help. Like I wasn't hooked, I wasn't wanting to keep
Yeah.
going. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a bummer. It had a lot of potential. Obviously, like the targeting of winners, meta targeting is crazy. Because a lot of them just go home early, and usually, I mean, to this point, like most of the winners were like some of the best characters in Survivor. Obviously, like, I mean, if you look at it, even like the final two, like going into the season, like those were probably like the least two like big name people going into it. Now they're obviously like legends as well, but at the time, like I'm sure everyone was like, why are they here? I think like the only like thing, and I'll get into like my personal favorite moment of this season is like Rob's like talking to Lex and being like, if you could save her, do it. Like when she gets swap screwed, because probably the best moment. Like to me, it's the best moment because it like truly like ruined Lex's game. It saved Amber and it showed the amount of power that Rob had. And I mean, the downfall of Lex is like such an interesting storyline. Where I don't even know if they're still friends to this day.
Mm-mm.
But I love the fact that Lex was like, we're best friends outside of the game. Like, why did you do this? But like, he did it to Ethan. Like, he
Yeah.
literally did it like a couple rounds before, and I don't know. It's like the moment where everything shifts. It's that moment Kathy talked about at Final Tribal, where like he had a moment where he could have like took another path, but he didn't. And I don't know. I think it's like the crutch of the entire season to me.
Yeah. I think the problem was like the whole cast was really close with each other before the game. Like I
Mhm.
was listening to RHAP the other day, like for one of the episodes or like recaps or something for Survivor 45, and Rob was talking about how they literally were in a hotel together, like the six of them, like their original tribe, and like they got to spend a lot of time together before the game actually started, so they're close, and so because of that, that really it created interesting dynamics, but at the same time, it made things more personal for people and less for others. Like it was hard to play it, like if I was in that situation, I had a good friend, I'm like, well, I'm trying to win $1 million, but my friend trusts me this much, like I'm taking advantage of that. And so it's hard, like a lot of like real worlds seeped into this season, which I like it just made it more negative and harder to get through for me. But I would say yeah, I would have to agree with you about the moment. Like I think where Rob like tells Lex to save Amber, like I think that's a great moment. And Lex doing it. Like just watching Amber come back and Rob's just shocked that she's still there. Um so I think that's a great moment. As far as my favorite player on the season, I'm just gotta be classy, go with Rob. Like he dominated the season. Um he's just gutsy and I liked the moves that he made. I think kind of his perspective of the season was cool. Um, although I do think Amber should have won because of how much he pissed off the jury. And that was all kind of his fault doing that. And so I don't know. I still think Amber did a great job in that game. And she's just also a winner that's forgotten about a lot in the Survivor community. Like everyone
Mhm.
knows, like, oh, Robin Amber, but Amber won like $1 million, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And I think she's just a great winner. She's not definitely top tier or anything. She's probably closer to the bottom, but I'm definitely one to think that whoever wins deserves to win. Like that's kind of where I lie with that ideology. So
Mhm.
I think she played a great game. I don't have much else to say about the season.
Yeah, I would definitely say like probably Rob. I mean, Rob is like the main player of the season. Everything revolves around him. I think I kind of said my piece. I just think Lex is probably my favorite person to like rewatch the season about, and you look through it by his eyes and his downfall. It's definitely super interesting. That or like I love Rupert on the season. The fact that this is like probably one of his like better runs on the season, like on Survivor, and it happens to be this one, and he votes for Rob because of his word, all this stuff. I think he was a more positive presence on the season.
Absolutely. I do think like the whole idea of the final like six or seven. I don't even know, but it was like Alicia, Big Tom, you know, uh,
Jenna.
yeah, Rupert, Robin, Amber, and Jenna. Yeah, like that's just like a the boot order, man. Like it's killing you.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like, oh my god.
um, but anyways, we can move on. So actually, when looking at this, including All Stars, the next two seasons after, were actually basically tied.
Mm.
That's kind of the order they came out in. Um, like they're averaged out, they're the same, but we just have to do it in a certain order. So next up at number 43, we have Survivor Redemption Island, season 22. Um, so back-to-back seasons of Rob dominating a season. I think he does just an incredible job in this game. Um, I think I like voting out Matt Elrod twice. Like that's just a crazy moment. Um, I think Philip on the season is just hilarious. And then I think there's just outside of that, we get not a whole lot else. We get Andrea. She's a good character that we get to see again. Um, but literally Ometepe just dominates the entire season, and everyone else is his little guinea pig as Rob goes to win the game. There's not much else he can like. It's just such a dominant win. It makes it so boring. Although there's some great moments, like we get Redemption Island for the first time, which a lot of people hate, breaks the game. I don't know. I don't have a lot else to say about the season. It's just boring to me. Like Rob just goes through and just gets put with a bunch of newbies and goes and kills it and wins.
Yeah, that's where you're wrong. This is one of my favorite I'm just kidding. It is one of my hidden gems. I love this season. Like I recognize so clearly that it is a bad season, but I cannot help but be like so immersed in how Boston Rob is winning this game because he does it like if you just watch Boston Rob and no one else, you're like, this must have been like a crazy cool season where he like makes up a game and like has to go to the bathroom to find an idol. My first ever moment of watching Survivor is him throwing the idol clue into the volcano, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Stuff like that. I think Rob in general, like this was just like a coronation of so many years of Survivor. Like this was to many people the best player to never winning. This is like Suri winning like nowadays. Like it's pretty cool to watch. I definitely think like, there's not that many good characters. Obviously Rob got the more susceptible tribe while Russell got the one that was like, actually playing. But I do think that Rob did it like he had to do it perfectly to win the game, and he did. I think he won like four immunities. Like he did really well, and obviously like the whole cast is pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
even the second best one, like even like Philip is like not good, and I don't
Man,
know. There's not a lot to
give
say that
Matt
was good.
some love. I love that guy.
I
He
know
should he should
so
have been on
innocent.
Cameron. Like Caramone's a good
Yeah,
one to have been on, but
yeah, one NFL, but I don't know. I think his vote out is one of the like strategically best moves I've ever seen in the history of Survivor. From that point on, Rob was more or less guaranteed to win.
yeah.
All he had to do was get there.
And he was surrounded by a bunch of bums that didn't know what to do with him and
Yeah,
didn't on him. And because he had the numbers majority, he got to basically put on the entire other tribe, and then his group got to kind of go to the end together, and yada bada bing bada boom, all done. Sweeps it up. And another thing that's forgotten about on this season is that Russell Hantz was on it and
yeah.
got
Who
voted out.
cares?
Who cares? Like, I think he just does the same thing and just everyone's like, I'm not dealing with this and just gets rid of him, which is just hilarious. Because Russell thinks he's so good. But like that's a good funny moment early season. Um, what do you think about Redemption Island as a whole? Like this was the first like main like
I
game breaking twist that got
I
introduced.
mean, it was meant to ensure Robert Russell wins. Um, and it's used over and over again to ensure that one of the return like this era is like getting the returning players like a win.
Mhm.
And obviously Rob never used it. If anything, it was a hindrance to him. towards the end, which I think is like the one thing I do like about these sorts of twists are usually for the winner they have to overcome it. And I think Rob does a perfect job like sending Matt back. It would have been interesting if Matt got back again, but I still think Rob, this is like his pretty much his athletic. He's a little past his athletic prime, but like he's still like in great shape. And I think the twist is bad. I don't like battle backs in general. I think it adds a little bit of intrigue, but it wasn't enough to like justify its existence.
For sure. And something else of note is that in any Redemption Island season or Edge of Extinction season, they all feature returning players in some way. So, like to back up your point about getting returnees to win, I feel like that's a great point just because it's another failsafe that they have. They can go back and use hopefully to get one of their returnee players to get a win, which works for this season, but not for another season, which we won't talk about this week.
Nope.
So I'm excited to talk about that in the future because it's one of my favorites. One of my hidden gems, as I'd like to say. But I would say my favorite moment of Redemption Island is like we've already talked about, is Matt Elrod getting voted out as soon as he gets back into the game. Like I just think that's a great moment. And Rob just shows like why he deserves to win. And then my favorite player is probably Rob. Like that's just a bunch of robot answers, but I think he plays dominantly. It's just enjoyable to watch his run. Although the rest of the cast is boring and makes the season boring as a whole because there's no really anything else going on besides a pekonging and a dominant win. So what do you got?
Mine is actually different. It's one of my favorite moments in the history of Survivor. It is Rob winning final immunity and his reaction to knowing he won the game. It gives me chills. I love when people know when they win. Like, eventually we'll get to it to a very recent season. But like Rob, like putting his hat over his head, like crying, because like he knows he won. One of the best moments in the history of Survivor to me to see this legend just break down after so many days out there. Definitely great. Obviously, Rob. I mean, there's no other option. I mean, Rob is the best, uh, best character on the season. My favorite player,
Like
not of all time, but definitely up there. Yeah. So that's all I got.
all right. So moving on to number 42, we got Survivor Karamoan, season 26, fans versus favorites. My, what do you think about Karamoan?
A lot of wasted potential. Um, I think in general, the main thing holding back this season is the casting. I would definitely say most of the favorites are not favorites. I could only argue like maybe like three of them I would consider favorites, and that would be like Malcolm, Eric, and like I don't know, Philip. Like even Cochran. Like
I like
I can see why he's on there,
yeah.
but the season was just set up so perfectly for him to dominate.
Andrea could be a favorite, too.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of forgot about her,
Yeah, but there's
but it
several.
was
There's just nothing going for them.
yeah, and the fans tribe was not very good as well. Obviously there's ickiness on the season with what is it, Brandon? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, which is like not great.
yeah, just basically mentally ill, and he has to be on Survivor with like someone as agitating as Philip can be, and that kind of set him off a little bit, and that's just a kind of a scary moment, I guess. Just watching him like be unstable, and basically it's
Mhm.
very worrisome. Like the fact that his family kind of disowned him after it, like in real life. There's just a lot like surrounding that issue, which is not really fun to talk about, but something that happens on the season. Um, yeah, I think the season just really is messy. That's my best way to describe it. I think Cochran has a great game, but I think the like most of the players is just they're super messy the way their gameplay is. Like the fans are just not good at the game. And the favorites are not always favorites, and it was just kind of a bad combo. Like I think it's a miracle that the original fans versus favorites works because like I feel like the twist of that casting twist is just broken because of how screwed the fans are in that situation because the favorites have such an advantage. And I think it showed its head in this season as well. And they also just casted like pretty mediocre fans as well. And that combination just did not help things. One of my favorite moments, I guess we can go to that, is the Three Amigos tribal. Like I love that moment where uh Malcolm plays the idols and like just like they get through that tribal knockout Philip. Like that's just a fun good moment of the season. And I think other than that, like I just don't have a lot of like memorable moments or like anything that's fun to watch. Like as chaotic as the Brandon Hans moment is, like it's just not entertaining. It's just kind of sad. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. What is your moment?
I would say my moment would definitely be like Three Amigos Travels, the highlight of the season. I would say the one that like I think about a lot is probably when Malcolm actually convinces Reynolds to like get the idol played on him. I think that's such an underrated move in that situation where to them they thought it was one of the two, and like Malcolm just saying like, "Hey, it's on me." He gets them to play it on him, which I think is like great move. It shows Malcolm's like great strategic ability and social ability. Malcolm's my favorite player on the season. I mean, he was just like actively like screwed from the beginning, and he still somehow manages to get as far as he does, which I think is very impressive. And I mean, there's not a lot I like about this season in general, honestly.
Yeah, I also rooted for Malcolm the whole season as well. And then at the end, I really wanted Eric to win. And then he got, medevaced at the end, which is really sad. Um, but I agree with you that Malcolm is probably my favorite player on the season. I think after watching Philippines right before and him being this close to winning, like coming off the back of that, everyone's like, dude, this guy's got to win. Um, let's
Mm.
everyone was rooting for him at the time. Like I was rooting for him, even though rewatched it later when like on Paramount Plus whatnot. And so yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about Caramon. I don't. I just, it's not the all 15 of these seasons. I would not recommend to a new viewer. So if you're new,
Not a one.
not a single one of these. But they're necessary in a full rewatch. So or a
There.
full watch. Um, so going into number 41, we have Survivor Fiji, and this
Oh
one
yeah.
you take the reins on because I do not have a lot to say on this season.
Yeah, I got it. Basically, Fiji. I mean, inherently with a terrible twist, the haves have nots, where one tribe gets everything, one tribe doesn't, which inherently makes the tribe that has nothing like lose all the time. I actually don't think it's a half bad cast. There's definitely people I do like in it. I mean, yeah, man, Earl, Dreams, I'll really like. Even like Rocky's ridiculous to me. I mean, that guy is so weird. Yeah, but I mean, there's not a lot. There's obviously innovations with my favorite moment of the season was just the safe vote. But even then, it's not like this crazy like. And the moment is very crazy for her to like think it up, but like that was a very common strategy and one that actually was used before, but they never really commented on it.
Mhm. I think in this season, like the car curse moment coming to a head with Dreams or yeah, Dreams taking the car from Yao Man, like and kind of just taking advantage of him. Like I think that's a crazy moment. The fact that
Yeah.
like most of this cast is like really diverse at the time. Like Dreams was like a homeless guy, like when he came out to play. Like I think that's really cool. Like it shows like diversity in America. Like I feel like we could get that more often. Like having
Mhm.
three lawyers on the last season, like it's just not like
Not
although
good.
it's like, ethnicity diversity, like I think that's great. It needs to be on Survivor. But as far as it goes with you know casting with like people's jobs, people's lifestyle, like that could do better. And I think they did that well early as, Fiji. And then how could you not pick anyone else but Earl as, your favorite player of the season? Like I just the fact that um he has a perfect game, right? Like
He's one away,
one vote from a perfect
one
game.
straight.
Yeah, which is sad, but like he is one of the most dominant winners. And he's just like such a charismatic guy, and he's just fun to root for the whole time. Um, and he's someone easy to latch onto, and I think he just kind of wallops through, everyone in the season. So it's really cool to watch. And the fact that he's so likable and does it, like that's also makes this season better, and that's why it's not like the worst season of all time. But yeah, the haves versus have-nots twist is
Terrible.
messed up. And then I think, yeah, that kind of just sets the tone for like a bad season. And then there's obviously quite a few casting duds, which doesn't help things either. So
Yeah. I definitely think like in general this season, like as good as diversity as it is, there's a lot of like especially during Final Tribal, like there's some like ickiness. Like I forgot her name, but like the way she was talking to the final three was like you're like, oh, like it's pretty bad. But I knew you were gonna say Earl because pretty much he's the only answer other than Yaman. But I'm gonna go with my favorite player with Dreams. I think Dreams is like going through this season was very interesting, especially as a homeless man.
mhm.
Like you can see why he was doing what he was doing. And I think like him flipping on the four horsemen. I think him not giving up immunity. I think he's an extremely interesting player. Like because a lot of those moves is like stuff I would think I would do. Like giving up your immunity to Yaman and that is like detrimental to your game and like it wouldn't make sense. And I think how he handled Final Tribal was actually pretty good. Like I think it was funny. She was like, "How many zeros are in a million?" And he was like, "6." And she was like, "Okay." And it was like, "You're six." It's like you're six stupid. Like obviously he would know that. He's smart. I don't know. I like Dreams. I think he was treated pretty poorly on the season, but like even against that, he like did pretty well.
And I think it's a crime that we've only had one returnee from this season. Like both Dreams and Earl should have came back. Like it's
Yeah.
up past their time. We'll probably never see either of them again. But like they were just good players at the time. I think the only chance for Earl was like Winners at War. And I'm not sure if he even got the call. So I think
He did, but I think what he said, I forgot where, but he was talking about how his wife was having a baby, so he couldn't do it.
that's yeah, that's super important.
But
So
I think if like given the call, he will return,
give him the
which is
call.
cool.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I if he ever had come back, I'd be all for it. Like he's just someone that's not talked about, and I think in the Survivor community, if we were thinking about a returning season soon, we were thinking about like second chance too, which is something he wouldn't be in, different things like that. So I don't know. I don't have much else to say about Fiji. Um,
Yeah, me neither. We can move on to the next one, which is unfortunately a very much like all these. These are all bad seasons, but it's Island of the Idols.
which
Um,
I had kind of high, which is not great. I had it.
it was my second to last. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I had it at 37. So it's not high by any means, but it's
No, of
high
course not.
for yeah, it's
Relatively, I guess.
yeah, but relatively higher than what Joel had it at. My defense of why Island of the Idols is better than a few seasons here, despite the overarching, terrible producer situation with Dan, like that's just not okay at all. That whole situation was just messed up and could have been avoided, um, and could have been like prevented earlier, especially like even at the merge, like they should have taken him out then. But
Mhm.
I think the pre-merge is one of the best pre-merges, like period. Like there it's just such a good pre-merge. There's so many like fun moments. Like despite how memeable like Rob and Sandra are, like with their giant heads, statue heads. Like I think them being on the season, like I like them in the voting booth, like giving all the comments on the season. I love the moment when they're like Sandra's like, "Oh, a female's definitely gonna win this," and Rob's like, "No, no, they're not." And like obviously showing like the only way they'd show that is that a female would win, and then Tommy wins. Like
Mhm.
I also like Tommy. Like he's a great player, great winner. And then a lot of the Dean Kowalski moments in the season are just really entertaining. Um,
It is hilarious, bro.
yeah, and so there's several like good players. Like I'd love to see like Jamal back. I would love to see Janet back.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it's too late for them because it's still a pretty recent season. Um, and there's still no chance for any of them to return yet. So, like going back from like 35, through 39, like all those players could still probably have a chance of returning because they just haven't had an opportunity yet besides winners at war. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like a lot of the moments, but you just can't rank it high with, the depressive and just horrible treatment of Kelly. That's how I can say.
Yeah. I definitely like obviously it's one of my least favorite seasons. To me, like the surrealness of watching what happened like ruined so much of the season for me that I just don't think I could put it very high. Plus in the sense of like, yeah, it actually was a great pre-merge. But also think like some of the twists were just like ridiculous. Like the fact that Jamal like lost his vote just for grabbing an advantage is like ridiculous. I think that's crazy. I think like asking them to go against Fire against Rob, who is probably the best fire maker in the history of Survivor, is crazy. I think the fact that Dean gets an advantage from 50-50 coin flip, all these things where I'm like, what is happening? And like, here's the thing: Tommy's actually one of my favorite winners. I love Tommy. I think his route to the end is one of the most impressive games I've ever seen. But he's also one of the most boring characters I've ever seen. Like, he's not that entertaining by any means.
Yeah.
And the only
But
reason the final tribal was good was because of Dean. And
yeah,
I love Dean.
yeah, Tommy just plays such a good game. Like he's not the most rootable winner just because of like he's not super on he doesn't have a huge on-screen presence. But you can tell like his social game peak, strategic game was up there too. He didn't need to win an immunity. Like he had a completely old school game. He didn't use
Mm,
any advantages or idols. He didn't even go to Island of the Idols, which is just really funny to me. Like they like the whole
I love
front of
that.
the season, he doesn't even go and he wins. And I just think that's just great. I enjoy Tommy as a winner. I think one of the worst moments of the season, despite all the dance stuff, is Janet getting screwed over with an Isle nullifier. Like literally, Janet should have won. I was rooting for her so hard, and then that was just like a bad moment. There's a lot of advantages. Like I think it's really the end of an era. Like I would say, I know 40 is definitely the end of the era, but like it is a returning season. Like it's just like as far as like new casts, it was like an end of an era, and I think it's very clear to see like all the we got a completely new revamp after this with the 40s, and so yeah, not a great season, wouldn't recommend. But if you have to watch it, you have to watch it. um yeah, I
Yeah.
don't much else to say. My um favorite player is probably Janet. Like she was just kind of had such a strong mind on her shoulders, had a great social game, was actually there for and cared about the women. And like that didn't really help her. She got screwed over like a lot of people didn't like on the season. Like all that is just hard to get talk about and get through, but like the stuff that happens on the season. And then my favorite moment, um, I don't even know. Probably just Tommy winning. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't think of any
Um,
good like standout moments.
yeah. For me, my favorite I mean, like obviously, I love Dean. I think Dean is so goofy to me, but I think my favorite player was actually Lauren. I thought she was the winner. I was so hyped. I was like, Lauren's about to kill it. Even now, like she's still into the Survivor community, and you get to see even more of her personality, which is great. I do think Tommy do did at the end outplay her, but I mean, she was just one away from like she was like fire making away from winning the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would have been close, but like I do think she does pull it out.
Yeah.
My favorite moment is Tommy's split tribal. I mean, there's very few times a winner has been like screwed this bad, and like there's like an Amber situation, but with like without Rob, and he had to just like work his way out. I think seeing his strategy, um, like how him as a teacher, like he has a heart for like charisma, and like how that played a factor. I think it's one of the most impressive maneuvers in the history of the game from a winner standpoint. And I personally think it's the best moment of the season, mostly because like there's not that many good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't got much else there either. So we can move
Yeah, we'll
on.
move on.
Yeah, let's go to uh number 40, which is season. Oh, that was number 40. That's my bad.
That's okay.
Number 39, we have Survivor One World.
Yeah, what a season. Obviously this season, if you liked Rob's season, this is kind of like that in a way. Obviously we don't have any established players. It is just one player, Kim, running the game, and the most impressive feat in any Survivor ever.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like if you like Kim, you're gonna love this season. I mean, like has her paw prints all over it. I will say there's not like really one spectacular moment I would say throughout any of it. There are some decent characters. You have Kat, you have Troyzan, you have Sabrina. You have like a bunch of like pretty solid characters, but at the end of the day, like you have some really bad ones. I mean, Colton is one of the worst Survivor players of all time. I hate that guy.
And they bring him.
Um, the fact that they brought him back is ridiculous, but that's
It
for
is,
a different season.
yeah.
But I think overall, this is just like one of those where like I have a guilty pleasure of watching a dominant winner, especially one I like, and Kim is likable. She plays the near like opposite game of like Rob in the sense of like she's not like making these people scared of her. They just like her so much that they're willing to let her win, which I think it's outwardly more impressive.
Yes. I totally agree here. Yeah, I have a little soft spot for One World. I had a little bit higher than you did. I had it at 36, you had it at 42. So
Mhm.
I think obviously it's pretty boring to watch. Like there's a lot of, just bad casting on this season. Like that's a common theme with um the dark ages of Survivor, like seasons 21 through 26. Like just a lot of pretty bad casting. And despite that, there's a couple, great picks, which is obviously Kim. I think Sabrina is another great, character on the season. And if she wasn't playing with Kim, she would have had a great game and could have won. And then Troyzan, just a beast in this season. I enjoy watching
Mhm.
Troyzan. Like basically say like this is my house after winning that immunity. Yeah. My island. Like that's a fantastic moment. I think the one world twist is a great twist, even though what makes it this season worse is that they get rid of it as soon as there's a tribe swap. They just like, all right, we're done. Too confusing. Like it's easy to know who's on which tribe because of the men versus women thing. But when they do a tribe swap, there's like, all right, we forget the one world. But I think it adds such an interesting dynamic at the beginning of the season where they're living on the same island. They get to strategize with each other without being on the same tribe. We have an insane moment where the men's tribe volunteers to go to tribal. Like that's just ridiculous. Um, after winning immunity. Like that's just like rule number one. Like that's worse than throwing a challenge. Um, but all that to say, I think Kim is a great winner. I think it's such a big, moment for her to come back and winners at war.
Mhm.
Because everyone's been wanting to see if she's as good as we think she was. And I would say she was up, she's still up there. Like winners at war did not taint her, game at all in this season, despite the fact that she was surrounded by a bunch of people that didn't know what they're doing. And I think she just showed like how you can really, if she was just so likable, everyone's like, we'll just give her the million, like the fact
Mhm.
that people are willing to say stuff like that shows like, how great of a player she was. And so I don't know. Sing Kim's praises all day.
Yeah, I definitely think like my favorite moment is just like pretty much the Troyzan episode where like dude is backed against the wall, he wins immunity, like pretty much just like he's screaming at everyone. It's so great. I mean, I was happy he came back for Game Changers. just because like if you look at this season, he's like probably the best character besides Kim.
Mhm.
And like, dude is like just actively against Kim, which I think in a lot of the dominant seasons, there really isn't like
A big thing.
Rob, like, there isn't like one person like after Rob, it's the whole tribe because like naturally you have to be. But like this season, I mean, it's like Troyzan versus Kim. It's like a battle. And like Kim is just like actively outplaying him. And it's so fun to see. And I think like that's probably my favorite moment. And like Kim is obviously my favorite, but I mean, I could easily just say Troyzan.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, Kim's my favorite. I could also go with Troy Zan, and I just everything you just said, like the Troy Zan episode is just great too. Feel very similarly with all those takes. I mean, I don't really have any other moment to mention. I will say one moment that I think is hilarious is that the challenge where they have to memorize stuff and they just cannot do it. I think that's
Oh
just
yeah.
that whole challenge is hilarious to watch. Where they like flip open the thing, they just cannot put the items in the right order. Like,
Yeah, just doing it wrong like, the whole time.
yeah, and just yelling at them the whole time. I think that's great too. But other than that, that's all I got for One World.
Yeah, let's move on to a very recent season. Um One that I think we both agree on. In the new era, we have Survivor 41,
Yeah,
which
and deservedly charitable.
I would say so. This is like obviously Jeff and the producers are trying a lot of new stuff here. Obviously, it just came off of COVID. The rules changed drastically. You're no longer 39 days. There's different idols aren't just idols. There's beware advantages.
Hourglass.
Um, the hourglass twist is ridiculous. And here's my hot take against the hot take. Everyone's just like, hey, if this cast had like 90 minutes, it would be one of the best casts ever. I like thoroughly disagree. I
Yeah,
do not think the cast is good at all.
this is not
And
good.
like there are good characters, but like most of them go pre-merge. And I think like just in general, this season is probably like one of the worst case scenarios of how this season could have played out. I do like the winner. She's definitely grown on me a lot. But I think like in general, like extremely under edited. The final four in general is extremely under edited. Um the twists I do not like. I do not like the format. The editing is weird. It's not bad, but like it
I
was just weird. Like I don't know. It was just a really weird season to me. Granted, the hype was insane. I was so excited for this
Yeah,
season.
the hype was crazy. Going off a full year without Survivor, coming off the back of Winners at War, one of the best, modern seasons, best seasons as a whole, one of the best. Um, and we get 41, which coming off the also recent influx of Survivor viewers with Netflix getting the rights of the best two seasons of all time, pretty much is Kagiyan and Heroes versus Villains. Those are the seasons that they get to watch on Netflix. They're like, oh my gosh, this show is so amazing. We get all these new viewers. Oh, Survivor's coming on again. Let's go. Let's watch this. And then you just get jump scared with what the final product of Survivor 41 was. And I can talk about all the new era changes all day. They've definitely improved them a lot since 41, but 41 is obviously the worst that we've gotten out of this because they did not have any fan reception. Um, just the product that we got was just really bad. And if it wasn't for the backlash that Survivor got, like I feel like 42 would be in a complete like would be bottom of the barrel seasons as well. But they had to go through an entire re-edit for that season. So we won't talk about that for a while because of that. I think the editing definitely negatively affects this season because there's just so many weird moments that happen. You're just like, well, how does that even go down? Um, I also like as Joel was saying, I think Erica is growing on me too. I think if we got to see her game, I would have liked it. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem was we didn't, and everyone's like, "Man, Erica was so good." All the all the jury people were scared of Erica or scared of Heather, and you're like, how would we even know that? Like JD in the 3 episodes he was on got as many confessionals in the premiere than Heather got in the entire season. So it's like, or no, that's the wrong stat. I think Erica in the finale got as many confessionals, which is like 13, as Heather had in the entire season. Heather had only 13 confessionals, and she made it to the final four. Like that's just ridiculous. Like really, not really balanced editing. JD's such a huge character in the pre-merge, but he goes like fourth or something like that. Um, and then overall, like yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of the cast. I'm not a huge fan of the twists and go on this forever. And I feel like the reason that I'm getting so passionate about this one is just because of the recenciness of it, because it's only a few years old. It's 2021 when it came out. Um, so that's all I got for 41. I think the best moment is the Xander Liana tribal where they have the um what's it called? Safety. No, I forgot. What is the freaking advantage called? That I'm forgetting about.
The
Uh,
knowledge,
knowledge is
knowledge.
power. Yeah. Um, I think that's a really funny moment. Like, no, but you can have this fake, like them gaming that completely and just completely ruining it. I think that's a good moment. And then my favorite character on the season, I gotta go with Xander. He's just a vibe. I enjoyed watching him. Even though he didn't play the best game, he was just like entertaining and he was like someone for me that I got to root for. Um, despite him like kind of tripping and falling to the end, and not playing the best game. Like I still think he was one of my favorite characters. Then we got to see him a lot, and so that's probably contributes. If we got to see Erica's game more, I'd probably pick her, but like we just did not see her game very much, and so I'll go with Xander here.
Yeah, definitely a rough season in general. I think there was good moments here and there. I think Brad was a very underrated character. I think he was hilarious. I think the just dynamics between Shannon and Ricard are very interesting, where you have two duos that actively know they can't take each other. Um, but like in general, like this season wasn't great. I do blame the editing, like putting Heather there with no edit when she had a genuine chance of winning is ridiculous. Um, and I think like Erica, like you see her like outside the game, and she's like pretty good character. I mean, like obviously, like the producers like clearly did not like her all that much to the point of like under editing her. Like, unfortunately, that's how it is. Like, if the producers don't think you're entertaining, they're not going to edit you. And which is weird because like Erica like had a good story. She's a pretty good player, I'd say. Like a pretty like above average winner. Like she played about as well as she could have given the circumstances, but in general, for the first season back from a year, it was definitely underwhelming. I would say my favorite moment is actually the Shan blind side. I think it's the best episode of the season. I think it's interesting how it played out, where I think everyone played optimally. I actually agree with Ricard having to take out Shan there. I think that was he was pretty much forced to make that move. I think Deshaun and Danny made the wrong move taking out Shan. I think because it gave away the numbers to Erica. Erica put the split on, which actually I've heard people say that it was actually Ricard who put the split, and they were trying to edit it to give Erica more like credit, but like who knows? I don't really know that. But overall, I think that was a great moment of the season. Shan was the main character. But with that being said, my favorite player was definitely Ricard. I think Ricard is such an interesting player where you could tell like Shan was his social game and him having to learn to like actually be social and like he knows he's not and like it was so good. Plus him and Xander's relationship was cute. But yeah, that's all I got for 41.
Yeah, same here. Can't give you much else. Um, and then these next 2 seasons, we got some super old school seasons that we get
Back
to
to
talk
back.
about, which I have not gone back and watched these in a while, so I'm a little rusty here. But coming in at number 37, we have Survivor Australia and Outback. And there are quite an iconic cast. Like it's probably the most iconic newbie cast that we've ever gotten in Survivor, just because of coming off the heels of Borneo, which had broke so many records with viewership. People were clamoring to watch, Australia, and they came and watched it, and it's the most watched season of Survivor still to this day. And I think that says a lot, but looking back, it's the early 2000s-ness of the season really kind of shows through. Um, and I think the reason that it's kind of this low, one thing for me is the pacing. Like the finale is one of the worst finales ever because of how slow
Yeah.
it is. Like it's so long, and it's only the final four. It's and it's like such a long finale. Um, and I don't know. Yeah, the pacing thing. I just didn't have super enjoyable time watching it, despite the fact that I knew a lot of the players were like iconic, and like watching Colby versus Tina, like mom and son pretty much like in the finale, like great TV as well. I think like my favorite player on this season was Colby. Like I know that's not really a super popular opinion now, but it was back then. But I enjoyed just like him, beasting through challenges, and his personality was funny. Like, all I care about is, I forgot the quote, but one of them's like Texas. Um, and like it's just it's just pretty funny moment to me. Um, and then ended up being Colby versus Jerry, getting to all that drama is great. And then Tina is just such a good winner. Like the fact that she played so well, like 25 seasons later in Blood versus Water, like shows like how good she was, and she's still underappreciated to this day. I think Tina was just like such an incredible winner, and like she just dominates the field socially. Like everyone was obsessed with her. Um, and I loved watching Tina. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, definitely like looking back, it's definitely like not that fun of a season to watch, especially with some of the cast. Especially nowadays, it's you're like, ooh. But I mean, obviously iconic final two, probably one of the best final twos in the history of Survivor. I would definitely say there's like a lot of like different strategy that like I totally forgot about. Like the fact that the tiebreaker rule is different leads to a lot of strategy that your vote actually like carries over within a tie, which I just think is like actually a pretty interesting way to avoid like it gives you a reason to avoid votes. Which goes into my favorite moment of the entire season is when Tina throws immunity so that in a tie vote, what did she do? She like threw immunity to I keep like I'm trying to remember his name this whole time. Oh shoot, what's his name? He comes back like 8 times for no reason. Um, Shoot, he's like he's terrible.
Oh, Varner.
Bronner, yeah, she like throws immunity to get out Varner, I believe, and I think that's probably like to me probably the most interesting moment of the season strategy wise. Of like you could tell Tina didn't want to do it, but the fact that she did do it shows to me like one of the few like I like that Rich like eventually we'll get into it, like throws immunity, and that's the reason he wins. But Tina throwing immunity here kind of like calls back to that of like why she will eventually win as well. Obviously Tina, Colby, two of the best players. My personal favorite is Jerry. I think Jerry is hilarious. I think for the first villain edit, it's like, why are you making her a villain? Like she's not even like doing anything wrong. But she like owns up to it. Like eventually we see like she has one of my favorite like storylines ever of like her accepting being a villain. But her and Colby's relationship is great. Like Colby could have won if he just like apologized to her. And the way she like voted for Tina, like mentioning strategy, it really just added to the building blocks of what Survivor is now.
Yeah, totally. I would say my favorite moment of the season was the finale when Jeff reads the votes, and when Tina gets called the winner, like Colby also jumps up and cheers her on. Like, is it him cheering her on, or is it like it's just kind of a weird moment? But I think in actuality, he was just really happy for her for getting the win. And I think that's just one of the best like winner reveals that we've gotten. And
Yeah.
I think it shows like how strong their relationship was over the season. And I just think it was just a great moment for me. Yeah,
Oh,
and then
absolutely.
yeah, I already said Colby was my favorite player too. But I do love Tina a lot too. So
Gotta love her.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on to literally the next season, Africa. We got I do think it improves upon Australia Australian aspect. I think the cast is probably a little worse, but I think the final, like the people who make it to the end, are like the best, like people who could have made it to the end. I think we get our first like anti-hero in Lex. We get probably one of the most likable winners in the history of the show in Ethan. Big Tom is hilarious. Kim's immunity run is so weird, so random, and I love it. We have the first tribe swap. We have a lot in this season, but ultimately, still not amazing.
Yeah, I would yeah, it's just that's the pacing of the old school seasons are, it's definitely different nowadays. Like harder to watch now because there's, early 2000s. It's just a completely different time when they came out. Like what was entertaining then is different now. Despite the fact that we have, three single digit seasons that are pretty up high in our rankings that we'll get to later. But I think the reason that Survivor Africa is low is once again like the pacing. I think one of the coolest aspects of the season is their location being literally in Kenya and surrounded by lions every night. And it was just like a super dangerous environment, super physical, environment as well. And then in addition to that, I think we have a lot of, great characters on the seasons. On this season, I want to say this cast is better than Australia, despite the fact that Australia has so many returnees. And I only say that because like we get some well, I think Silas is a great, like, not a great character, but I think the downfall of Silas is a great storyline. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's happened outside the show now, with him, and then uh, Frank and T-Bird are just great characters as well that go out early in the merge. And then the final three of Big Tom, Lex, and Ethan is just absolutely iconic. Or not final, they're in the final four. But the three of them are just great characters. Um, and there's a reason they all came back for All Stars. And Ethan's definitely my favorite player, and he's a great winner on this season. And does everything it takes to win. And I think he just did a great job, kind of moving through. And then the Talking with T-Bird podcast makes me want T-Bird to come back, but she's also really good on this season too. And so I like she needs to come back eventually in a second chance, but it's probably never going to happen. I don't know. What do you else think about?
Yeah, I definitely like this cast a lot. Definitely like Lex, Tom, Ethan, and even like Kim to an extent. Like great Final Four. Um, I like how the season played out. I like that you get to see like the first true downfall of a character in Lex. That's the first one I'd probably credit with. And like Ethan winning is so likable. I mean, dude, like you just see it throughout the season. He's just so loved, and his social game's on point. And obviously, he's like probably one of the first like second in command to ever win the game. But I think he plays it about as well as he could for trying to be as honorable as he is. I love how he used the money to go help the kids he met out there. Um, it's so cool. My favorite moment of the whole season is honestly like I think it's hilarious when like Lex and Ethan have to go out with a goat to trade for like they eventually get fries, but they're like, oh shoot, what are they going to do with the goat? And they like take it to a butcher shop on accident after they get attached to it. I think it's super comical. It's definitely an underrated moment, and I think actually Lex is my favorite player. I like how emotional he is. Especially after finding out someone voted for him and he just like blows up everything. It's so funny. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't really have much else to add. It's hard for me to like kind of reach back because I haven't seen this season in a while. So that's probably
yeah,
it for Survivor Africa. Um, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching or listening, as we broke down these 10 not so great seasons of Survivor. But as always, thank you so much. Please leave a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're listening in podcast form, go ahead and leave a review and rate our podcast. It would be greatly appreciated. Um, any review is a great review. We just want to bring this this podcast out to many Survivor fans as possible. Um, and also, if you go to the link down below in either podcast or YouTube, you can find our Instagram page. So go ahead and follow that too, as we'll be posting some updates as we go along, and we'll also be posting different things that kind of preview what we are going to be doing this off season, as well as getting ready for Survivor 46. So thank you guys so much. We will see you guys later.
See ya.